did we lose you?
Me?
Yeah. What
I don't
is
think
Rich?
so.
What was the Rich Miller's position?
Um, Now I can't remember what his title was. I don't remember what his title was, but he retired. But there's a couple different initiatives related to climate and environment, and they sort of sit in different places within the university. So that's why I want to understand what the purpose of this
Right.
position was, to make sure that it's appropriately addressing whatever the reason Rich was on the committee to begin with. Because some of the environmental stuff falls under the provost office, some of it falls under the facilities department, some of it is action groups that fall under the president's office. So again, it's a multi-tiered approach to a lot of the environment stuff. And also, again, what Sean does, Sean gets involved in some other elements that relate to building and how the environmental impact on building projects. So it's not in one place within the institution. So, but I'm going to call the meeting to order at 1:06 p.m. a.m. p.m. Wait, p.m. Usually we have. You want to do you have the introduction of Sergeant Timothy Merrill first, as opposed to, are there any members of the public? I thought we usually do the members of the public first, but who is introducing Sergeant Timothy Merrill?
I think that should be Ryan.
Okay, Ryan.
Happy to do so. So as probably most everybody in this call, this meeting knows, Sergeant King, who had been serving as the resident trooper supervisor for Mansfield for, I guess it was about 9 months, started in earlier mid-July after Sergeant Timmy's retirement. I know basically from the moment Sergeant King got here, he's been recruited into a lieutenant's role because state police has let's just say a healthy amount of vacancies in the upper ranks at the moment. A lot of lieutenants and captains and majors sort of devoid from the org chart. And so I guess it got to the point where he could no longer say no. And so he has become a lieutenant. He'll be at the troop over in Hartford. And so as in the course of that transition, we were made aware that Sergeant Tim Merrill, who's with us today, will be our new resident trooper supervisor. I'll let the sergeant kind of give us all the flyover of his background and kind of his career arc, but had an opportunity to meet with both he and Steve before his official appointment, and certainly my impression is that he understands, the culture of the college town and some of the things that make, the work that we do fundamentally different, or the issues that we tackle fundamentally different than a lot of other communities with resident trooper programs. So I think, plus there seems to be a common theme in terms of hairstyles between Steve and Sergeant Timmy and now Sergeant Merrill. So I guess the model, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? So without any further ado, I'll turn things over to Sergeant Merrill to introduce himself.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. And happy to talk to everybody today. I'm looking forward to introducing myself in front of everybody. I've been in law enforcement since 1988, and I've been with the state police now for about 12 years. I was promoted last year and went to Troop H. Prior to that, I spent about 8 years in 2 different towns as a resident trooper, which I think is pretty vital and important, especially when you're going to supervise resident trooper town as Mansfield is. And one of the things that I believe in strongly is going back kind of old school, back when community policing got the troopers, police officers involved with the community, with the schools. I think it's very important that you have that bond with the community, not only to help solve crime, but so they have a friendly face, somebody that they can talk to, somebody that they know by name. And we are going through a huge transition, like Ryan had said. And in that aspect, we have a lot of young troopers who are willing, eager, and ready to work. And so far, from what I've seen, being here for just over a week, these troopers are excited about contributing to the town of Mansfield and working with Uconn to make residential life for the citizens, comfortable, engaging, and I'm looking forward to getting them out into the community and maybe having more FaceTime with yourselves and also the schools. And like I said, just the community in general. So on that note, I will, like I said, I'll be coming around to make sure I introduce and get to know you all a little better. And I'm looking forward to working for the town.
Wonderful, thank you. And perhaps we should do introductions then, because I'm not sure, if you've met everyone on in this group?
Okay, and I will just let you know as well, unfortunately, I have a couple of engagements that I have to attend to in about probably about 10 more minutes. So if you see me go off the screen, it's not because I left for any other reason besides that, all right?
Great. I'll start. I'm Kara Workman. I work in the president's office. I also oversee events and conferences at Uconn. I've been involved in the town for many years in various capacities. I'm going to introduce John Armstrong, who's probably the person you'll work with the most in terms of this group right here. Or maybe you've already met.
We have. So thank you, Kara. Sergeant Merrill and I met last week with Sergeant King. We did a transition conversation about the town and my role with students off campus. And Sergeant Merrill, John Armstrong, Director of Off-Campus and Commuter Student Services at Uconn. Welcome.
Thank you.
John Vasington's on the phone from Uconn. He's also in, oh, there you go.
Yeah, thanks, Kara, and welcome to the group. Welcome to town. My name is Sean Vasington. I turned the camera on, but I'm driving right now, and you're the last person I'm going to want to speak to with my camera on while I'm driving. All right, here we go. I'm pulled over now. Here we are. Hi, I'm on my way to a doctor's appointment in Norwich. So welcome. I serve as the Director of Site Planning and Landscape Architecture for the university. I also live in town.
Okay.
And Michael Gilbert, is that you on the phone, or can who's on the phone with the last digit 368 identify themselves?
.368 is the registrar of voters.
Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you. Lily,
Yep.
I can't see you, but I think you're here.
Hi, yes, sorry, I just got out of class, so it's a little noisy, but I am here.
So just introduce yourself to Sergeant Merrill.
Yes, sorry. So I'm the Director of External Affairs for USG. So I work for the undergraduate student government. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And then from the town, we'll start with Paul.
Yes, I came to Mansfield in 1952, and I'm currently chair of Planning and Zoning Commission. And I've worked in agriculture as an agricultural economist throughout my career, but not with Uconn. But I did grow up in a Uconn rental house. I have a lot of connections to Uconn.
Okay.
Brian, how about we go to you next?
Still Ryan Aylesworth, still the town manager in Mansfield.
I'm assuming you know Tony also, Mayor Marion.
We've met at a council meeting, so we'll get further acquainted as we go along.
Brian Coleman.
Hello, welcome aboard. I'm Brian. I'm with the town council. I worked in public safety at the University of Connecticut for 27 years. I look forward in working with you, and I'm an advocate of good public safety practices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Hi, Tim. I'm Cynthia Van Zelm. I'm the director of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership and also handle economic development for the town. And once I get back after next week, it'd be great to sit down and talk with you about the downtown and parking and security and all that good stuff.
Linda Painter?
Hi, Sergeant. We met a few times now and look forward to working with you. Welcome aboard. I'm Director of Planning and Development, by the way.
Rob Miller?
Greetings, Rob Miller. I'm the health director for the Eastern Highlands Health District and the town of Mansfield, and my office is actually right down the hall from here. So I'm sure our paths will be crossing at some point in time. Welcome.
And Margaret, I know you're behind the scenes, but I wasn't sure if you'd had a chance to meet yet.
Yes, in fact, we connected even a short time ago about today's meeting. So glad to have you on. Glad we could connect.
Great. So moving on to the agenda. Oh, are there any questions, I should say? No. Okay.
Yeah, Kara, I'm sorry, Kara, just a quick question. How many resident troopers does the town have these days? Because you hear things over the years about biggest program in the state, 7, 8, but on average, how many does the town have?
Oh, you're muted.
I don't think the question is on average, because every year we authorize payment for a certain number. Right now we have 7 troopers and 1 sergeant.
That's correct. 7.
And there has been a request to add additional troopers. And for what it's worth, my budget recommendations to the council embraced one of the recommendations. Sergeant King had recommended establishing a daytime trooper. He's calling an admin trooper, basically a trooper whose focus would be on school and youth relations. So, but would be a daytime hour shift to obviously best interface with student populations. So that person would be available to respond to other sort of non-youth, non-student calls as needed, but would bring us up from a resident trooper supervisor and 7 troopers to 8 sort of troopers. Yeah.
And in addition, Troop C has dedicated 1 trooper to cover the town in the evenings, I guess. So we do have, it is a little bit fluctuating in that we provide the largest number of calls for Troop C, whether they're answered by our residents or by Troop C when there's no resident available. So it does fluctuate, but the number that we hire is the largest in the state. Everybody else has 1 or 2, and we have 8, 7, 8. It depends on how you count the sergeant.
Right, and one of the biggest issues is the fact that Troop C does cover Mansfield if a Mansfield trooper is not available or is not working that day. However, that trooper does cover more than just Mansfield during that patrol. That's one of the biggest issues why we are looking forward to an admin trooper to help supplement that, where if they're tied up in Willington, they wouldn't be in Mansfield to cover even out of Troop C. So that's why that additional resource would be good for the town of Mansfield.
I believe Mr. Coleman has a question.
Yes, new faces bring new ideas. Can you share any of your new ideas that you may bring to the town of Mansfield, maybe particularly in community outreach?
Well, so I think it's important
We can't hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear us, or I can't.
Yeah, it's cutting out. It's gone into like perpetual echo chamber. Now he's frozen.
Sergeant Merrill?
maybe updating the technology would be a good idea.
More cell towers.
Well, everyone knows this area is very challenging. To be honest, no matter what service provider you have. But that's why we love it. We love natural elements, trees, landscapes.
Bad cell phone service.
Well, we will, if he comes back on, Brian, we'll get, or we can talk about it, perhaps get an answer for you.
Thank you.
And it's too bad also because what John Armstrong was going to talk about is related traditionally to typically what Sergeant Merrill does. But moving on the agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 8th?
So approved.
Is there a second? Brian? Any discussion? Anyone opposed to approving the minutes to February 8th? No? Okay, motion passes. And we'll start with number 4 for updates. I can start with the update on the Uconn Mansfield framework. So our group, as you know, meets monthly, and a subset of the larger group met for the first time last Friday with the intent to actually start writing or putting on paper what our actual framework discussion or context will look like. Every time these groups meet, we end up getting into a lot of various conversations because these are complex issues and we have a lot of priorities, and also things move quickly in this framework of town university relations in terms of all the projects that we have. So we did a lot of sharing, and I'm looking for my notes, which of course I can't find. We'll start to put on paper what our goals are, what our vision is, what decision, how decisions are made within the context of the university and also the town, especially as it relates to financial matters, timelines, structure for approvals. We also talked about focusing on some themes of economic development and vitality. Support economic development is one thing, but long-term sustainability is another. So it's one thing to recruit a business, but once we have the businesses here, we have to create a mechanism for making them successful and making them be able to stay in business. We also talked about, hold on, I'm still trying to find my notes here. We talked about some shared goals in relation to the physical look and feel of Mansfield and with the university in terms of attracting and retaining the type of housing that we're looking for to support the needs that we both agree we have, which is for younger families, graduate housing, low-income housing. And that could be talking more about neighborhood developments. What are the types of things that we could do collectively to attract a developer in order to build the type of housing that we really want to see here. Here's my notes. So the themes are economic and community development, economic vitality and retention, building and having more conversations about what a neighborhood or a community atmosphere would look like as it specifically relates to housing. And then also focusing more on the relationships with the town and the university and the local areas and opportunities for students. And that's actually a very broad scope theme. But it speaks to the relationship that we have with each other and the importance of the students being part and integrated into the community and vice versa. So we're going to meet again and just again start working on identifying what our assets are within the two towns. And Cynthia's team in economic development, they already have a parcel book. There's a guide, the opportunity zones. We have the conservation plan. So it's just a matter of putting all of that in one place and one location, so that when we're looking to recruit people to live here, work here, build here, develop here, that we have kind of a comprehensive package with the town and the university. And then once we get to the nuts and bolts of that, we'll talk about more of what are our shared marketing initiatives in terms of really working collectively with economic development and with the university to be more proactive in seeking opportunities for development within the context of the framework. That's my update for that. Ryan, although Ryan isn't part of that shared group, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything, or Mayor Moran, or Cynthia even, and
I don't think there's
Linda.
anything I would really add other than just happy that these meetings are, starting. We obviously for a while, have been focusing heavily on sort of what I would call project scale stuff, which is important. But we also wanted to make sure we got back to, the sort of original reason why this group was assembled, which, basically Kara just laid out. So I'm very happy that we're starting to build a structure around all this.
Any questions? So moving on, Cynthia has a report for the partnership and economic development.
Great. Good afternoon. I'll try to do a couple of quick updates, starting with the partnership. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the board had started to form some working groups. So we have 3 working groups to implement our downtown store strategic action plan. The first one is promotion and public spaces. Second one is business/property owner engagement. And the third one is sustainable funding. The promotion and public spaces group met a couple of weeks ago, and Sean Vasington is leading that effort. The business and property owner engagement, I hope, will meet the first week in May. I'll be sending out a note on to that group. And then sustainable funding group is meeting on its own. So we're excited to get that started, to start implementing some of the things that are in the plan, some of which were already underway. I also sent, or Margaret, thank you, Margaret, sent a list of our events. We just kicked off an announcement on our events for the year. I think Kathleen in our office sent it on, kicked it off on Friday. So we have a full slate of events. This month is National Poetry Month, so there's several things going on, and we're also showcasing, and we may talk about that a little bit later, many arts, music mostly, groups on Betsy Patterson Square this month, and that'll continue throughout the month. And then in terms of economic development in general, since the last meeting, we concluded Mansfield Willie Restaurant Week in early March. We did a survey of the restaurants, and the responses were very good. I've gotten some feedback from the partnership board and others in terms of how we can continue to improve it, in terms of more publicity from the TV folks, more sort of structure to the communication within the restaurants in terms of making sure everybody's up to speed on what's happening that week, possibly expanding it. So our group, and again, this is a group with Thread City Development Team, Margaret and Kathleen in our office, as well as Stone Row and some other folks, including Dog Lane Cafe and Gansett Wrap. So we'll meet in early October to plan for next year. And then a couple of things under the Four Town Initiative, Bolton, Mansfield, Coventry, and Tolland. We have a webinar, again, under Kara's leadership with Uconn Career Services that will cover how do you work with Uconn students in terms of providing a venue for them for jobs, both jobs while they are students and when they graduate. So that is April 26th from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. If you want to join us, it was a great overview by the team at Career Services. We're also engaging, we hope, a master's student at Uconn's public policy department out of Hartford to bring on an intern to help us implement the goals of the four-town economic vitality plan. We feel we need some additional assistance to really, as we've said, quarterback that plan. And then we're also, we had sent out a request for proposals for a consultant to help us with branding, a logo for the four towns. We got 8 responses, and we'll be discussing that with the staff team tomorrow. I think that's it. Oh, signage. Our signage team met a couple of weeks ago with Merge, which is our consultant, looked at a couple of designs for the signage and wayfinding program throughout town. We have another meeting today to look at some refined designs, and then we'll work on bringing in our stakeholders who we met with Merge and some of us met with over the last couple of months within the town to take a look at what we have so far and also try to nail down where our destinations are. So that comes out of the town's marketing and positioning plan and is another exciting project that we hope will be concluded by the end of the summer. And I think that's it on this end, unless there's any board or EDC members that have any comments.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. And moving on to Linda, planning and development. Oh, Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, did Cynthia leave?
No.
I'm here.
Yeah, I may have missed it. I had to step out for a second. When is the poetry reading?
The poetry, so we have one at 2:30 tomorrow on the square, and I believe that's the E.O. Smith group. So that's the group prepping for their the E.O. Smith Drama Club. And then we have another one, I think toward the end of the month, but I would go on our website, Brian. So if you go on the downtownstores.org website with our calendar, they should all be up there.
Okay, I might want to participate this year.
If you want to participate in terms of doing some poetry, then I would get in touch with Denise in our office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Linda.
So I think the two big things just to update the committee on, I know that both the mayor and Councilor Coleman are aware of this from last night's meeting. We have excited on the front, we have applied for a communities challenge grant back in January of this year, and the university assisted with that application. So thank you very much to Kara and Sean and Laura Cruikshank and Lloyd Blanchard, and I'm sure I'm probably missing a few other people who helped us pull together information. We learned last week that application was one of 12 applications that was awarded funding by the Department of Economic and Community Development. We received our full ask, which is approximately $4.85 million. Not everyone received that, so we're excited about that. There were 52 applications for funding from across the state. The project will include gap financing for Eagleville Green, which is a mixed income development on South Eagleville Road, as well as pedestrian safety improvements. And so one of the concepts that we advanced as part of that application was trying to create essentially a boulevard concept similar to what you already see on Stores Road approaching the intersection with South Eagleville Road. So trying to bring that, I want to say it's from a little bit west of Maple Road. So basically between Separatist and Separatist intersection with Separatist Road and 195. And so to do some real things to calm traffic and improve pedestrian safety, including some landscape medians, narrowing travel lanes, widening the walkway that's existing on the south side of the road to a multi-use trail, as well as adding some sections of sidewalk in certain locations on the north side of the road, particularly along the municipal complex. So that is going to be a great project, and it's going to bring some much needed affordable housing to town. So our other partner is the Mansfield Nonprofit Housing Development Corporation, and they were very excited by this award as well. The second item that I think would be of interest is that we are resubmitting to Congressman Courtney for hopefully community project funding, formerly known as earmarks, through federal funding, upcoming federal funding bills for a multi-use trail that would extend along Stores Road from the intersection up at Fort Corners with Middle Turnpike or Route 44 down to the southern side of Tower Loop Road, which is currently where the walkway ends. So we have that entire section of Stores Road that has no off-road pedestrian facilities. It again is for a multi-use trail 10 feet wide. Last year, we did submit this for infrastructure funding, and while we made it all the way through both the congressman's and the committee's vetting process, I think they didn't end up I'm not sure they did any earmarks last year, or so I think nothing got included for earmarks in the infrastructure bill. So we are resubmitting that application just with a few tweaks to increase the ask due to cost escalation, as well as just answering questions that are different from last year's application. So that will be going in this week. And Kara and I were talking earlier today. The president had done a letter of support for that back in September. So we're asking for an updated letter on that from the university. And the council approved that submission last night, and we'll also be submitting a letter of support for that. So those are kind of the major planning activities going on right now. The other item that I will note is we have developed an electronic survey regarding different types of cannabis establishments to get public feedback before regulations are drafted. The Planning and Zoning Commission, you will see when the survey comes out, they have specifically noted that at this time they are going to be proposing to prohibit cultivation or production of cannabis in Mansfield. There are just too many unknowns at this point, so we are focusing more on the retail side of things. But we want to get some input from the public. We are right now trying to figure out what the schedule for releasing that survey and responding to it will be, as well as how we can get the word out to folks. But we do want to get that out before students leave for the semester so we can get their input.
Just real quick, I want to tag on just to what Linda was saying, and I have acknowledged this with the council, but for the good of this group, which is of course a blend with town and university folks, just want to extend a thanks to Linda for her own personal efforts on both funding applications that she has overviewed, the successful DECD community grants, community challenge grant application, as well as the community project funding that we're pursuing again through Courtney's office. You know, these are collaborative efforts, and there are folks from various pockets of town hall and around town that are, contributing to make these efforts successful. But, I think a special call out for Linda, as well as Derek Delay, the assistant town engineer, just for their own personal efforts, really rolling up their sleeves. And, somebody has to be responsible for taking a lot of really good ideas and feedback and distilling it into actual verbiage that becomes the application. And so I just want to, thank Linda for her efforts and attention to detail and helping us put our best foot forward.
And having read the application, I can testify to the necessity for verbiage. The response we got from the Department of Environment, of Economic and Development and Community Economic, I can't remember what the acronym is, but anyway, was that our application touched all the bases, and the collaboration with the university was a big part of the reason we got the grants. So I really want to thank everybody on all sides for having put this together in very short order, by the way, with a great deal of creativity. And I think once this project is completed, the improvement to the area will be very visible.
And I just want to thank you, Brian. I also do want to note that Cynthia Van Zellen was part of our project team on that. I accidentally left her out earlier, but she did a lot of work on the job creation and contacting businesses and really working on the economic piece of it. So it's always a team effort.
John, do you have a question? John?
Do I have a question? I think
Your
Sean,
hand is
Sean,
raised, Sean.
Sean, yes.
Sean's muted.
Yeah, I thought she said John too. Sorry, Kara. Yes, kudos all around, and always happy to help with these efforts. Regarding the sidewalk to Four Corners, would it be appropriate to reintroduce the conversation of the sidewalk on the south side of campus along 195?
So Sean, are you asking about heading south from 275?
Correct.
Or
Basically from where the path currently ends at the bank, further south down 195. I think what we had proposed last time around was maybe as far as Spring Hill Road. Just because of the number of parties and the like that occur on the south side of campus. There was another one like last semester, a couple weeks ago after spring break was over, where state police, I believe, actually directed traffic in the middle of 195 for party goers walking to the party and dropping off in 195.
Was that a Darty? Was that a daytime party?
Yeah, it was a Saturday after break, I think, kind of a late St. Patrick's Day party, the week after break.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I think
they
we
happen
certainly,
go
for it.
Oh, sorry, Ryan. I was just going to say they happen regularly on that side of campus. There's obviously other benefits to having a multi-purpose path extend past where it ends now. I don't mean to suggest it should just be for party goers, but for those of you that have seen it, you understand that it's a very unsafe condition in that shoulder.
I guess I would say, you know, having spoken with John Carrington and others at our end, I think that there's, you know, certainly conceptual support and recognition that there's a situation to be improved upon there for sure from a public safety standpoint. The only, I guess, cautionary tale I would offer is that, you know, speaking at least from the town standpoint is, you know, we have, I think we're experiencing and we'll be experiencing challenges in terms of bandwidth and the number of sort of above and beyond projects we're taking on between just the two that, you know, if both come to fruition, and we know obviously the South Eagleville project is coming to fruition. Just wanted to make sure that we aren't taking on more than we can manage at any given time. So I think it's something we want to continue to talk about, but I want to make sure that we're not biting off more than we have the internal staff capacity to manage.
I can totally appreciate that, Ryan. Thanks. If it's okay with everyone, maybe we reintroduce the discussion by speaking with John and see if we can call a meeting with DOT to get it on their radar. I think that's where we left it last time. And maybe we can just get that meeting scheduled and go from there.
I think just to add is I think it's going to be important to get that into some regional plans. I think one of the things that has helped us with the section we're talking about is that has been on the town's priority list for so long. It's in our plan of conservation development. It's in the Eastern Gateways plan. I think it might have been covered in another regional plan. So it's something that we literally have a letter from the Capital Region Council of Governments going, yes, this has been identified as a priority project at multiple levels. So I think for that southern segment, we need to start thinking about how we how we can introduce that into plans, because I think that is one of the things that does help us when we go forward with the project, is to be able to say, yeah, this isn't a new idea. This has been identified.
So we're running up against some folks that might have to leave. So we're going to jump actually to Rob Miller to give a COVID-19 update.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, it looks like Councilman Coleman has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry to give everybody this news, but Rob, you can add 2 to the list. In Mansfield, I just tested and my wife tested positive. And of course, notification is going to be needed to the people I exposed, and that would be the Mansfield Downtown Partnership Group and the Town Council.
Thanks
Ryan,
a lot, Brian.
Ryan, could you notify the council?
Yeah, I'll work with Rob on whatever the sort of appropriate approach for notifications is. I want to handle it the normal fashion, but I'm sure we'll make sure the council members are aware.
Thank you.
And of course, Brian, you could always call my office if you're looking for guidance specific to your situation or your family situation. No problem. With that said, I'll segue into my report. We've certainly seen an uptick in the past couple of weeks within the greater health district population related to BA2 subvariant of Omicron. It comprises about 70% of all cases statewide, and the other 30% are the other subvariants of Omicron. For the town of Mansfield, its latest case rate as of April 2nd was 5.6 per 100,000. The case count, again, as of April 2nd for the prior 2-week period was 20, and that does represent a slight uptick from the previous couple of weeks. I can tell you that it's hard to say what's going to happen in the next few weeks. I think the general thought is that we'll continue to see increasing cases. It's hard to say and make and speculate beyond that. For our part here at the Health District, we're continuing to do and host vaccination clinics here at the town hall on Mondays and Thursdays. We saw one of our largest turnouts just yesterday in the town hall, where we administered 40 doses of the mRNA vaccine.
I was one of those yesterday.
Mostly, I believe, in response to 2 things. A few things were happening. One, the second booster dose was authorized by the CDC and the CDC and the FDA. And I think there were a couple of providers in the area for some reason who I think either postponed clinics due to supply issues. And we here at the Health District opened up our clinic for the first time for those who are eligible for the second dose. So all those things combined to culminate to a bit of a surge for us, which we haven't seen in a few months. So it was good to see a lot of people coming in and getting their shots. We have transitioned away from, in line with the CDC and the DPH guidance, away from universal community-based contact tracing. We're no longer calling every single case and asking them to identify close contacts. That transition is also extended to the public school systems. We still continue to work with local public school systems and to support their efforts to focus on identifying and isolating symptomatic individuals and responding as quickly as possible to any possible cluster of cases that may arise within the school population. And we have seen a few of those already, and we expect to see more of those clusters in the school setting as this current subvariant continues to increase. And then finally, I just want to remind everybody that that both Talon County and all the surrounding counties, Hartford, Wyndham, and New London, all fall within the low COVID-19 community level impact as measured by the CDC. So I'll leave it there and be glad to answer any questions.
Do we have any idea what's happening on campus?
Last time I spoke with Dr. Ayer was a couple of weeks ago. Based on some of the numbers we're seeing, I think, campus, like the university, is also experiencing an uptick in cases. Again, our communities are really integrated in that respect. So I think what you see happening off campus very, very often with the current characteristics of the virus align with what is happening on campus. So that's my sense.
Rob, do you have any sense whether this variant is more or less dangerous than Omicron or Delta?
Yeah, it appears that it's a milder form of the Omicron variant. Despite an uptick in cases, we have not seen. I mean, there's two things going on. One, we're not seeing the amplification of the case, the acceleration amplification of case prevalence within a short period of time, like we did over the winter with the main Omicron variant. This is a much more gradual increase. I think for the most part, hospitalizations appear to be, relatively stable. I wouldn't, stable's the wrong way. It's still upticking slightly, but again, it's not an accelerated situation or an amplified situation where we saw over the winter. So generally speaking, this appears to be a milder form of the Omicron.
Thank you.
Ryan?
I just want to let everybody know, it started out, it seemed like just seasonal allergies. And then I lost my sense of taste and smell, and that kind of woke me up to getting a test. I would describe my symptoms at present as mild.
I'm sure we all hope that you feel better soon.
Yeah.
Any questions? And Mayor Maria, so the university still is updating the dashboard on a regular basis. In terms of, what they just sent an email out, I think 2 days ago, and I didn't click on it, but it is updated daily.
And if I may, Kara, that does remind me of one point that we did have an inquiry from the citizenry a couple of weeks ago about the differences between counts reported in the Uconn dashboard and the state of Connecticut and the health district weekly report, and there definitely there is a difference. The data in the University of Connecticut dashboard for kind of the aggregate count includes not only laboratory reported positive cases, but also those that are self-reported by students who do home tests. And so consequently, there will be a difference between what the health district reports out as student cases and what the university reports as student cases. The university dashboard obviously will be a larger number. So I just wanted to clarify that point for this group.
Well, thank you. I was going to say that we also have test kits, free test kits for students that we're giving out both for residential and non-residential students. They are free to students, and we still have a number of those left. If a student tests themselves positive, they can upload that to their personal portal, so that does get included in our numbers as well.
Brian?
This question is for Rob. What do you think is going on over in Shanghai? Is that a new variant? They seem to be locking everything down over there and taking some pretty huge precautions. Do you have any insight on that for us?
Unfortunately, I really don't. I mean, I've been reading the same thing in the media and watching on the television that you have. Just appears to be a very draconian approach by the government over there.
Great. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everybody. I apologize. I'm going to have to be bugging out here in a few minutes for another meeting.
I'll give you a call after the meeting, Rob.
Fair enough.
So we're going to move back up, and I had asked John Armstrong to give an update, knowing that this time of the year, we often have a lot of questions from the community about activities off campus and the weekend formerly known as spring weekend and those types of things. So John's going to give an update on that.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Kara. One of the things that we've done, and we do every fall, we do every spring, is we provide a memo that gives the highlights of what we're expecting and anticipating for events starting in the spring and into the culmination of the semester. And we did that this year. Mayor Moran and both Ryan Ellsworth received that. And also, it was sent to Sergeant King, but also shared with Sergeant Merrill. Some of the things have already come and gone. We highlighted the Final Four tournament. We highlighted a number of different addresses across the town of Mansfield where the state police have reported concerns or have made referrals to the university from August all the way through to the term of this memo. In addition, over the past few weekends, we have had a number of events that have occurred on campus, including Uconn Bound Days. We concluded Uconn Bound Days with this past weekend, Saturday, April 9th. We had one April 2nd and April 9th. We also had Husky-thon, which occurred on April 2nd. It was a very successful event. Our spring concert, which was a number of different groups that performed, they performed last Friday, April 8th. And at that event, there were masks required for anyone entering into the concert. So, Mary, I know you had a question on what we're doing on campus. That was one thing that we did recently to respond to looking like a minor increase or an increase in numbers. The concert went off very well with very, very few issues, minor issues that have occurred. Our spring weekend was scheduled for Thursday, April 21st through Saturday, April 23rd. And during that event, those are for Uconn students only. No outside visitors are going to be welcome at some of those events. Are really for students that are occurring on campus for all sanctioned events. Just to provide a little bit of framing for the semester and where we're at, we have 4 weeks remaining in the semester, including the week we're in, as well as the final week, which is final exams week. And the end of the final exams week, of course, concludes with what we will have commencement on campus, both in Jorgensen, in a variety of places across campus and Campbell Pavilion. So that will be 7th through the 9th. In terms of off-campus response, I met with Sergeant Merrill. We discussed specifically about areas of concern that we see Sergeant King and I have identified for him, shared those with him, and also share with him the way that he can make referrals to our on-campus community standards office. And he's already done that in a couple of cases. So in terms of what we're doing for the conclusion of the semester, 1 is providing the memo, 2 is communicating with the state police, and 3 is making outreach to students both through social media and through email contacts we've had with students already this year to encourage them to have a safe conclusion to the semester. So Kara, that's what I have. I'll stop there and see if folks have questions.
I actually have a question, and it relates to what I saw in the Daily Digest, and I emailed Ryan about the culvert and the closure of that road.
Hunting Lodge.
Lodge.
Yep.
So, as you know, that's typically a hotbed of pedestrian activities. So, have there been conversations about that area in the context of pedestrians and people walking and access? And
I can say right now that we're trying to mobilize, and we'll be mobilizing. This was not a planned project, right? So it's kind of an emergency situation. Fortunately, there are a number of, alternative routes, I guess, in that area to kind of find reasonable workarounds to the segment of road people are trying to traverse. But we are basically trying to figure out how we can most quickly solve the problem. And if you think there's additional communication that could go out or should go out to the university community, we can certainly talk through what that might look like. If there's sort of interim project updates or communication, we can get a call together with DPW, you and I, and we can figure out what that might look like.
I mean, for me, it was more safety and not really having an understanding of what happened, where it happened, how it might impact pedestrian. Vehicular traffic, I'm less concerned about as just, the hordes of students that walk that way during and on nice weather weekends.
I think it's not as bad as you might think, because the section of road that's closed is between North Eagleville and Separatist,
Right,
not between North Eagleville and Route 44. The section of the road that has the most traffic is the section as you're coming up to Hunting Lodge on North Eagleville from campus. The section that has the most traffic is the one on the right, and the one that's closed is the one on the left. So there are some student rentals in that direction, but nothing like the student rentals on Celeron and Carriage House on the other side. So it's not quite as serious an issue as one would have thought, but we are working very hard to get it, find funding to do it. It's not a small project.
Okay.
And if I could also say too, there is access for those students on that southern end of Hunting Lodge Road and from Hillendale, as well as Separatist Road. They can access campus through Orchard Acres, which is an apartment complex near that end, going through Orchard Acres up through, and there's a pathway right onto campus. So there are access points, and many students actually use that access point as opposed to walking down Hunting Lodge. Kara, we've also communicated through our office to all students off campus about any communication we're receiving about the road closure as well.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for John? Sean had to drop off. So, Ryan, it's in your hands.
Kara, I can provide some updates on I serve on the active transportation plan.
Oh, okay, great.
If that's helpful.
We combined a couple things here. There's some joint activity going on with the town and the university, and then there's a subgroup specific to the university. And I just wanted to make sure that every group was talking to one another, which I believe that they are. But so I'm not sure who wants to start with an update.
John, why don't you start?
Thanks, Ryan. The active transportation plan, as just so folks know, started in January, and what we're doing is working with an outside firm to look at a number of different access points, pedestrian walkways, vehicular traffic of all types, not just motor vehicles, but also scooters, non-motorized and motorized, other scooters that are rideable scooters, roadways, walkways, and every access point we have to look at how we can make it safer. And the active transportation plan has already offered one public meeting to receive feedback. There's also a website, which I will put into the chat, that still takes feedback ongoing. So to really take a look at specific ways where they're taking community feedback of how we can make improvements on campus. The second meeting is actually happening right now as we speak, as the active transportation group is meeting now. I'll join that meeting shortly. The plan and the timeline is to present topics and ideas to the university community, which we will share with the town later in the summer, hopefully by the end of July or even into August. So Ryan and Mayor Moran, once we have an identified plan of action, we'll make sure we share that with all of you.
And I believe on the 27th of April, there might be another public input session from 3 to 4
That's
p.m.
correct. Yeah. That's correct. And we will advertise that make it available, and we can also share the link and the date with all of you, so you can take a look at it as well.
So I guess the updates I would add, just because with this group meeting every other month, can't recall what we provided for an update back in February, but some of this may be rehashing previous updates. But following the tragic death of a graduate student on 275 in late November, or November, I guess it might not have been late November. We've been engaging with discussions with Uconn and DOT about how do we address the situation, make pedestrian safety improvements so that there isn't a similar, injury or fatality like that in the future. And we've had a couple sort of roundtable discussions, virtual meetings, if you will, and the last of which I thought was pretty productive. And we have identified some areas where we can make some demonstrable progress in this area, including improved signage and speed reinforcement signs, and potentially, although DOT continues to be DOT's position that they won't provide funding to install a rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RFBs, at the 3 uncontrolled crosswalks of greatest concern on 275. They are supportive of those RRFBs going in if the town and university want to work together and kind of make the funding happen for that. And certainly the new Uconn Police Chief Lewis, seemed very supportive of working together on these fronts. That came across loud and clear. So the town of Mansfield has put some money in its capital improvement plan for the coming fiscal year. There's obviously a lot of new federal infrastructure funds that we're all probably aware of that would seem to be ripe for a project of this sort. And of course, now knowing what we know about the redesign of a segment of 275 that's incorporated in this Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant project, all of this kind of needs to be, I think, integrated and thought through in a more comprehensive way. So I would just say from the town standpoint, we hope to continue to talk with Uconn about potential cost share in some of this as we pool together, non-federal match for this important project, which I think, again, it's pedestrian safety that would be highly valuable to the Uconn population as well as, town residents. So that's that. And then on a related theme, also coming from those discussions was DOT has approved an application that the town submitted for a road and pedestrian safety audit for sections of 195 and 275 in the downtown area. So we're about to commence work on that as well. A consultant has been assigned to the town. This is the costs of this audit being covered by DOT. So looking forward to that work. And I know some of the folks that are on this call who were part of previous meetings are aware that, we're talking about things like, the current lack of a crosswalk across from Dog Lane Cafe. Students just kind of come walking right off campus straight ahead as if there should be a crosswalk there. And so rather than expect people to, go up 195 a stretch and then cross and backtrack, wouldn't it make sense to potentially just put a crosswalk there? And so we're trying to hopefully, this audit will identify a number of findings that DOT will be amenable to acting on. That's the update.
Sean, I put in the chat, Sean just referring to the UPDC website for some updates, but also since the last meeting, there are no construction updates. And then in terms of other business, encouraging students, I know that part of a lot of the work that we're doing with the partnership and the strategic plan is creating strategies to encourage more student activities and university activities in the Betsy Patterson Square specifically, but also getting students and employees to use the services of downtown. So I feel like we're addressing that pretty heavily within the partnership. So that I think is the update for that. And I I don't want to forget to give an update on B because Paul has been. So I do have a bit, and this, from what I understood, is related to the chillers and the hotel, correct? Or is there
Yeah.
another issue?
Oh, that,
So
it's primarily chillers, yeah.
I did find out that 5 years ago, those chillers were replaced when it was a university property. And there are 3 ways potentially that we could mitigate the sound of those chillers. And I need to just speak to the manager of the hotel, or really the owner of the hotel. But it was interesting to learn that that had been changed 5 years ago, because at least my understanding from this group is this is well, I would say within the year. I think last summer we became aware of this, the noise concern. Do you know, had there been any previous concerns over the noise since, again, that chiller had been changed about 5 years ago?
It's for many years, it didn't cause any problem at all. And for some reason, last summer was when it became evident.
Okay. So I am still trying to look into what can be done. The replacement of that would be very expensive. There are other ways to, I guess, reduce the sound of the chiller.
One thing that might work is to, it has a wall around it, but the wall ends halfway up the size of the apparatus itself. Maybe just extending the wall to a higher level might do the trick.
Yeah, I had gotten some information from facilities about potential ways to, we hadn't talked about the wall, something to do with replacing blades, or there's some other sound thing. I don't have those notes in front of me. But I am still working on that. And I do know that the weather is starting to get nicer, so.
It'll probably fire up about a half hour from now.
Right. In terms of future agenda items, I know Tony and the registrar of voters, she's been on the phone the whole time. You wanted to add to a future agenda about the polling location, and is that specific to November? Or is there another election that you were looking for a polling location?
Well, there are primaries coming up as well in September, I believe they are, although they may be in August. But we're going to have a conversation with the registrars on the town side, but we are really looking to find a way to enhance student voting. I mean, students do vote in substantial numbers, but sometimes they fill the town hall. And 1 year there were so many students trying to do election day registration, they actually crashed our computers. So we need to find a way to make it easier for students to register and to vote over the course of the full day, rather than having to come to town hall at 7:30, and the polls close at 8. And this is a discussion which is obviously complex and has a lot of ramifications, and technical ramifications, as well as other kinds. So I'm not prepared to talk about it at great length tonight, although I just want to give this committee a heads up that this is something that we would very much like to talk about in some depth soon.
And this would fall, Lily, we did a lot of work with voting with Noah, who is graduating actually. So Lily will be looking to you pretty heavily to help us in this area as well. Are you around?
That'd be great.
Are you around during the summer?
Yes. So part of the summer I'll be away doing research, but I'll be here in June and August, and then on my computer whenever.
Okay. So we
think
should
that-
probably get a meeting soon since, we're only 2 weeks away to the end of classes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can email you after this.
Well, I think the registrars need to be part of this because there are technical requirements for things like access and storage and the ability to lock things away. And, there's nothing more that needs to be more carefully secured than ballot boxes, than voting machines. So we will need to have, this is a facilities discussion as well as a turnout the vote discussion. But certainly turning out the vote once we get a place. Well, first of all, we're going to try to turn out the vote no matter what. But where kids go to actually cast their ballots is a question that I think is an administrative one rather than an organizing one.
And Mayor, if I could say, I know during the last election, we realized there are different polling locations across the town of Mansfield, and that's a question we would have that we identified later in the process for the election, and we're able to get that information directly to students. So having that information available about where they're living geographically, how it ties directly into that polling location as opposed to funneling all students into one place thinking that's where I'm going to vote. So we can help with that. My office can help with promoting that to students living in the community.
I mean, that was one of the issues that when I was checking people in to vote at the community center, students thought that the Oaks was on campus. And wasn't, so they needed to go get into a different line. But if we have a polling place on campus, people who live in the Oaks may go to that polling place and need to go to the community center, which is a totally separate place. And of course, the polling place on campus will only be open to people who live on campus, so it's only for dormitory residents.
Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, does anybody have the metrics on student voters? Anybody know the actual number of Uconn voters that vote in our elections?
We do. The registrars of voters have those because we don't have the numbers for people who live off campus. We do have the numbers for people who live on campus. Because they have the same address. Everybody who lives on campus has the same address for registration purposes. People who live off campus have their own addresses wherever they live or wherever they're claiming their residency. So you can live on Hunting Lodge Road and claim to still vote in Westbrook, in which case you can't vote in Mansfield unless you go to election day registration and register on Hunting Lodge Road. And of course, then there are people on Mansfield City Road who are taking a course, therefore they are a registered student, but they have a full-time job at kids in the schools, and whether or not you count them as students or not is a fringe question.
Okay, so any future agenda items?
Well, the election issues will have to come up in the future for sure.
Yes, yeah, in addition to that, I mean. No. Is there a motion to adjourn then?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mayor Moran, second, John Armstrong. Anyone opposed to adjourning? Oh, people are dropping off. No, okay.
You well all.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay healthy. Feel better, Brian.
Bye.
Take care, Brian.
Thanks.